these sessions are going to allow you to be more proactive and get the tools you need to be able to be an effective leader and also really manage your organization.
So are we seeing a diverse amount of people in the C-suite jobs and the CEO roles?
So you have to be innovative. That's another thing that many companies are missing because we're stuck in the way we do things, the way that has worked for us. Welcome to another episode of the Rise and Fall Acting Lead Live series, where we discuss the rise or the fall of specific companies. I got with me today my co-host, Miss Aisha Thomas. How's it going, Aisha?
Hey.
I got my man Corey Seague. How's it going, Corey?
Oh man, another day, another blessed opportunity to go get it.
Absolutely. And we just want to first say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone out there. Whatever you celebrate, have a joyous time. We know that this year has been hard, but we just want you to enjoy your families and enjoy your time. And before we jump into our company that we're talking about today, me and Corey just want to give a special shout out to Miss Aisha Thomas.
Oh yeah.
Now a coach for Eric Thomas and Associates, the
Coach
game
Aish.
program. Congratulations, Aisha. How do you feel?
Y'all just gonna put me on the spot like that?
Oh yeah.
Wow. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful because even starting on this journey, you go into things solely just, I wanted to grow, I want to develop, become better. And somehow I got here through the grace of God. So I'm just grateful and thankful. So I'm super excited to serve the speaker, coach, trainer community in 2021 and beyond. Yay.
Yeah, we celebrate wins around here.
Wins. And what we want, and I want the listeners to take away as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as emerging leaders, we all have to start somewhere. And we all have to work our way through the process. And when you go into an organization, Aisha went into Game Changers to gain speaking skills, learn the business of speaking, and she did her thing. And when she went in and gave of herself, added value, those in leadership and coaching position, like Dr. Eric Thomas, the number one motivational speaker in the world, CJ, his number two man, they recognized that and she was rewarded for that. It wasn't something that she was seeking. But when you add value in your business as a business owner, as a leader, when you add value to mentorship programs, to customers, to clients, you never know what door can open up to you. So I want you to think about that. Oftentimes we want shortcuts. We want people to give things to us, but we have to work for that. And so Aisha, I just want to tell you congratulations, because I've seen over the last year the positions, the pivots, the growth from myself. Even though you were there before me, I was still able to look at you've always added value. And so that reward, that benefit, that byproduct of you adding value was well deserved.
Thank you so much. And I want to add another perspective because I say this all the time. I had this one individual who had reached out and they were talking about how they want to bring in contractors because they're a little afraid of employees. And I just really, when I was talking to them, I give them a different perspective. If you have a contractor that is doing their part and they're adding value, like you mentioned, and they're like really helping your mission and vision move forward, you might want to consider bringing them into become an employee. You might want to consider giving them a raise because they have helped and supported your company's mission and all the different things that you're trying to attain. So sometimes even within, and I'm big on hiring within, even within my organization, as I'm transitioning to another military base and to another function, I instantly was looking back at who is there that has supported the organization that is ready for another level of growth and development. So even internally as business owners, if you're bringing people in, if you have that one person that's standing out, then you really want to consider, okay, this might be somebody I want to bring in full time. This might be somebody that I want to give a raise to because they understand the company already. They've supported you. They show their commitment. Now it might be time to bring them in and take them to another level because they have gave that level of commitment to your business.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I didn't even think about that, but a lot of organizations do promote from within. They promote those who stand out, who show up every day, who give their all, who add value to the company by moving them in a different direction and not just taking the paycheck and going home. So that's definitely a great perspective. Another announcement that we have, we're gonna make all our announcements up front. The rise and fall, this is the last of this series for this year. And in 2021, we're going to be moving and shifting direction. So we will still do rise or falls with certain companies, but we're also going to mix in different aspects of business, of leadership development, of systems, of processes, of just the overall encompassing business, marketing, training, hiring, automation, team engagement. And so we're going to just give you a more robust podcast, so to speak, and actually train you guys and give you those practical tips, because we're about action and leadership, practical tips to move you further along in your business. So you'll still get some rise and fall, but you're going to get other things as well. And we're going to be mingling and intertwining in Aisha's podcast, The Eternal Fire. So we're going to kind of just go underneath that umbrella, and then we're going to push ourselves out even more. So a lot of growth on our end. We have a lot of things coming up. Again, next Sunday, this Sunday actually, the 27th of December at 7 p.m. Eastern, is part 2 of our strategic goal planning session. We had an awesome time last time on the 17th, where we actually had breakthroughs, where people realized that goal setting is not as difficult as it looks, and we're going to help map them their 2021 goals all the way out, with tracking, with how you pivot, with how you make adjustments. So if you're listening, go to our page at Lead Consult, join us. I will also post a link in the comment section so you can join us for that session, and it will change your business and your life. You guys got anything on that?
Nah, I think that was the perfect way to celebrate and kick it off for going into the new year.
Absolutely. So let's jump into this rise or fall thing. And I'm going to kick it off and just give a little background of who we're talking about. We're talking about SolarWinds. SolarWinds is an IT company that sells software to organizations so they can track and monitor their networks. They can see what's going on. They they can identify threats to their networks. And what happened was SolarWinds got hacked. And SolarWinds has about 18,000 customers that install the tainted software that they sell. Globally, they have 320,000 customers in 190 countries, including 499 of the Fortune 500 companies. So by SolarWinds getting hacked, they allowed, or through that, a gateway was pushed to other companies that fell underneath them. And you might be listening, you might be saying, I'm not in IT, I'm not in information technology. What does this company have to do with what I'm trying to do? And we're going to take you through some things. They're the number one in network management, so they lead the market. They're number 3 in systems management. And when you're number 1 in something, everybody wants to use you. You have a reputation of being good at what you do. And so that means you're trustworthy. When you're trustworthy, people kind of let their guards down. And so SolarWinds, being a trustworthy company, their software packages that get installed are trusted. So there's no extra check, there's no additional check. So by the hackers going through SolarWinds, once they gain access to them, they automatically had access to whoever installed that patch, which was about 18,000 customers. Their motto or their mission is understand information technology, build for information technology, make it simple, make it work, solve IT problems. Now, Aisha, before we get into the actual hack part, since we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion a lot, I noticed that their management is about 15 people, all white males, one white female. The IT industry is notorious for not having a lot of diversity. And from being in the military, from having some, have to deal with IT, you have to deal with people around you. How can these companies or these organizations begin to diversify?
Well, first, it has to be something that it wants to do. It has to be something that's a part of their strategic mission. Because again, a lot of companies, so a lot of organizations or managers or even leaders live within a bubble. And even for us, we have to start working on expanding our minds. So a lot of times when I go out and do unconscious bias training, when we've gone out to do any training related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we start off with unconscious bias because we want people to be aware that you might be living a life of autopilot. You might not even recognize that you tend to only hang with a certain type of people. Or even if you do only hang out with a certain group of people, recognizing that there are other stories, there are other backgrounds of individuals that you don't know. And also the fact that these backgrounds might be shaped by incorrect information from media. It might be shaped from incorrect information from family. It might be shaped from any type of education you learn from, again, people, places, and things. And if we aren't taking time to expanding our minds and learning about others and connecting with others, sometimes we don't even notice that we're living in a bubble. So even with the tech company, this has been a big thing. There are not a lot of African Americans that are in tech positions. You can go all the way to schools and education. I remember when I graduated I graduated in 2001. I'm aging myself, but at 01, I graduated with a certification from Cisco. So when the area that I lived in, they had a school. In this school, there were a couple schools in the area that had things like performing arts. Of course, they had the typical barbering schools, and if you want to be someone that's in the cosmetology and so on. And I remember they rolled out a new program because computer networking was so new. This is after the dot-com boom and so on. And I remember going into it because, again, my parents were thinking this is the next wave. This might be good. I think it would be interesting. So this was this was an African-American school, or will I say a lot of Black and brown people, specifically Black, and they were introducing computer networking. And I remember going through that class and graduating and having that certification. Now I didn't follow through with it, but we have to start even all the way to bring that interest and awareness to our youth, because that's what has a lot to do with this exposure that you have. Because in a lot of schools, you're only limited to certain, maybe again, you have the cosmetology, you have barbering, you have all these certain type of things that people are brought awareness to, even within the school spaces and even in households, that we have to even start thinking about, okay, how can we make them more aware and let them know that there are other type of fields that you can go to outside of basketball, football, and so on. So even in the African-American community, they're unfortunately sometimes not exposed to tech, not exposed to all these different things. So even as you're seeing that those spaces are more dominated by people of Caucasian descent, European descent, that is because that awareness is not there. So that's why you see that influx. But then again, on the other side, now that I'm a business leader, I'm in that management role. Of course, this company probably has seen what's happening in the world with everything that happened with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. And I mean, COVID really shook up and made a lot of people more aware of, there's a lot going on right now. And a lot of companies decided to pivot and start making diversity, equity, and inclusion something that they found as important. But if a company doesn't find it as important, if they don't make it something that they want to really strategically focus on, then they're going to continue to live in that bubble. So the thing I want to challenge SolarWinds to do, if they're not thinking about it, is that something that's a mission? Is that a value of theirs? What are they doing to recruit? Because again, the other side is when a lot of organizations don't realize that their recruitment process is biased, and they don't even realize institutionally that's why they have that bias, because you are going to certain schools to recruit individuals, but those certain schools, even the same thing, only certain people from certain backgrounds, certain groups end up going to that school. I mean, if you think about the Yales and the Harvards and all these other really fancy schools, or schools that people consider prestigious, they are predominantly white. And you have to take it all the way back to why they're predominantly white. Okay, what's happening in schools? What kind of exposure are they having? What's keeping those individuals from going to those schools? And even looking at the historic background of how or why those schools were created, who owned it initially, why they created it, because a lot of university and spaces created schools to push and maintain this idea of segregation. That's just the reality. So again, it's a lot deeper than, of course, these companies, but when they're recruiting, are they recruiting from HBCUs? And you see a lot more initiatives now where you see coding and tech is something that a lot of schools are starting to bring awareness to and bring attention to in regards to school-age children, high schoolers, and so on. But essentially, that company has to make that something that is a part of their strategic mission, what they want to do, what they're striving to do. And then once they do that, they have to ensure that their processes in recruiting, they have to ensure that they are doing their checks and balances on a regular basis to ensure that they are attracting and bringing in people that aren't just solely from one group, which is from the Caucasian group.
That's good. And I'm glad you went all the way there, because as you had started, I was thinking, okay, this goes to education, it goes to STEM, and you just took us all the way down that path. So very good information. Corey, I want you to talk from the perspective of team engagement, the team. When you have a company that is trusted and others trust what they say, what their software is, their team, how can we mitigate, I guess? What my question is, and I'm gonna read off some of the companies that got hit. From the government side, it was a U.S. Homeland Security, the State Department, Commerce and Treasury departments, as well as the National Institutes of Health. Private companies: Cisco, Intel, NVIDIA, VMware, and Belkin. Also Microsoft, California Department of State Hospitals, and Kent State University. So should agencies and companies diversify their practices, their security practices? And did too many companies rely on SolarWinds? So as a team builder, as creating great performing teams, do we still need to have checks and balances in that? And in your experience, are there checks and balances within the team to make sure that one person isn't trusted with too much?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if you think about the U.S. government, like no one really has more power than the other person. You definitely need diversity within your group. And maybe it might be, hey, your head honcho is able to do this thing here. But there's also a different group of people who say no. Maybe they're internal auditors, maybe there's some type of performance review team or something like that. And they say, well, this isn't quite working, right? Well, I was able to get into here. So yeah, you definitely need diversity within it, and that comes from different perspectives. You need people to think from different angles where they might attack different areas to it. And it's great that you have it's great that you have such a trusted fan base, such a trusted customer base. But at the end of the day, you need that type of diversity. Now, one of the things is I wanted to touch on something that Aisha was talking about with the DEI, which is when you go into certain situations, people will look at things differently. So if you have an underrepresentation of a demographic, and I'm gonna just say, like, let's say African Americans, right? I'm looking at stats here, and I'm looking at pretty much Apple has the largest share of African American workers within that business. But then is it all for real? Because it says 3% of the actual leadership team is African American. So are we showing it, or are we actually doing it? So here's the thing. And I'm gonna tie this back into what your original question is. But when you have a diverse workforce, when you have a diverse team, you have a diverse thinking. And so it's like, okay, well, maybe someone else would have been able to think about, what if the cyber attack comes from here? What if someone else comes in and says, hey, you know what, man, my guy over here from a different company, he was saying that they actually got hit by doing this. Okay, cool. Let's make sure we patch that up before it actually happens. It's just, without a diverse thinking, we all have a room that says we're just focused on this thing here. This is the only problem that we need to worry about. This is the only thing that we need to worry about. But that's the thing. When we think about diversity, we have to think about, and we talked about this before, Tyrus, like paradigm shifts. We have to think about where you were before you even came into this building. But the thing is, it's so valuable. Had a conversation with an individual, and this is just going back to the diversity side. I hate working with teams where everybody looks the same. I don't care what color y'all. I want I want diverse teams. I want to know that you've been broke at one point, that you might have come up maybe upper class, that you might have had middle class, but you had some struggles. Maybe you have some mental health issues. Maybe you're a single mother. Like I'm serious, because it gives you different perspectives on where everybody else is coming from. And then you start to think about, oh, these different angles in life. But then when you apply that to your business, you say, wait a minute, let me start to think about these different angles as far as maybe where somebody can come in. In this case, it's cybersecurity. Um, how can we be attacked from these different angles? But if you have one team, what they always say, one band, one sound.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool if you in the band and you got one sound, but in business is a little bit different. You need some different angles. You need to kind of challenge the status quo of what people are currently doing, because somebody out there has a different perspective from you. And as much as we would like to think, I would think as hackers as the villains, and the cybersecurity teams are the antagonists and the superheroes. We always hear sometimes that not sometimes, but all the time, the villains have a different perspective. So it's up to the superhero to figure out what is that perspective, where are they going to strike next. And it's really hard to do that when you don't have a diverse team, you don't have a diverse thinking within your business for them to know what angle may this come from, right? What may the villain's next thought process be? You hear a lot of people getting hired because they hacked into a system, then they say, oh, well, you come work for us and teach us how to fix that. I think that should be more proactive. Like, let's find some people, maybe teach them how to hack, and then see if they can get through my system, and then I'll hire them on, or something like that. Maybe it's a job interview or something like that. But yeah, I just believe that there needs to be a lot more diversity within, and in diversity, that means thinking as well. Because when you start to see the same people, to be honest with you, everybody that I know that works in the tech field, they present themselves the same, they act the same, they talk the same, everything is the same. So I can only imagine going into these big tech companies, you're gonna see kind of that Spider-Man picture where they like pointing at each other, and it's the same Spider-Man. Is basically that inside the company.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And when we look at what happened, it's called a supply chain hack, where if you are an organization and you use software from the middle organization, that's your supply chain. They're giving you some information so you can use it. And how does this relate to business? As a business owner or as a leader, who is in your pipeline? Who is in your supply chain? And what area of the supply chain are you in? So let's take it, and we'll take it out of IT just to make it practical. Let's say a movie theater. In their supply chain, you have the customer who comes in to purchase the ticket. That's the person who's utilizing the theater. Another part of the supply chain is the vendor that brings in the popcorn or the snacks. Now, and I don't know movie theater policies or what they do, but I can't imagine that movie theaters actually check the popcorn to make sure it's safe. They trust the vendor. Now, if somebody comes into that vendor, one day employer, let's say it's an insider threat, they're having a bad day, and they come and they drop some stuff in the popcorn that's being made for the movie theater. Now, as the consumer, when you go in there and you purchase your ticket, you get your popcorn, you want to watch the movie, you getting ready to have a good time. Then you get sick and you end up in the hospital from food poisoning. Whose responsibility is it at that point? How does it work? Who is monitoring the vendor? And most of these companies, they don't monitor their trusted supply chain vendors. And as an organization, you have to understand who you're working with or dealing with and where that information is coming from. We all use Google. A lot of us use Google. We use Google Drive. It has our documents in it. It has some protected documents in there. Where is Google storing that information? Who is responsible for protecting that data? What happens if it gets released or hacked? These are the questions that most business owners don't ask themselves because they don't care about the tech side of it. But I want to encourage you that this can ruin your business. I worked in cybersecurity. I still do. Penetration testing. I'm a certified ethical hacker. So I've been in these organizations where we're doing exactly what Corey's talking about. You go in, you try to get in. The organization knows about it. It's called white hat, white hat hacking. You go in, you test the system, you tell them where their gaps are, they patch them. So when you're thinking about this, does your organization have something similar? Is someone stress testing your product, your service? Is someone looking from the outside? What are you doing to protect people's data information? If you run any kind of retail business, t-shirts, if you're taking online payments, are you prepared for someone to come in and hack you? And what we think is, oh, hackers only attack the big companies. They only go after people who's got a lot of money. That's not true. Most organizations that I worked in have been smaller companies that have customer data, because the hacker, all they want is a credit card. If they can get credit card info, they go and they sell that on what they call the dark web, which has all kind of stuff. And you can get credit card numbers. Okay, let me see. And there are people who will make the credit card for you. So if you got the number, they'll take that number, they'll put it on the card, and you'll have you a Visa. And so don't y'all go out there to the dark web looking for this stuff, but it exists, and that's how it works. And my next question and it was basically that, do you have awareness of everyone involved or connected with your company? Do you have awareness of the people in your company? Aisha, talk to us a little bit about when you are in the military, active duty, the connection between the ranks and who's watching who, and why rank exists in the military, and as you go up, the responsibility of those watching those underneath them.
Well, since you just like Corey said, you just helped the dark web got that increase after what you just said.
That dark web went up 20%.
People are like, I know, right?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do it. But of course, the rank structure. With the rank structure, it comes with different levels of responsibility. So since we're using the example of, say, like hacking, or I'll use another one. One of the big things that it's big within the the military is something called PII. It's so important that you protect personal identifiable information, things like social security numbers, things like addresses, things so specific to a person that if that information got out, that person could be again hacked. That person could have an attack happen to them. Especially there were times I used to work at the Pentagon, and I remember that they had a policy, and a lot of people still do it, that when you show up and you go into the Pentagon or you're headed there, because a lot of us had to take the train to go there, wear your regular civilian clothes. And what will happen, I wear my civvies, we call them civvies, and then we'll walk in, get off. And of course, once we get off the station to get to the Pentagon, you go through, you scan your badge, and there's guards there. You have to be scanned in to get in. Sometimes there'll be protesters on the side protesting whatever is going on, depending on, something related to the high-ranking officials that's in there. But you'll go in, scan in, go upstairs. Then when we get to the office, we'll get our clothes and go change. And there was a level of protection that happened there. And the reason why, again, is that was a time where a lot of people that were military affiliated were being attacked and so on. So in regards to PII, one of the measures is, if you're going to send email traffic or you're going to send information to different people, and it has that social security number, those addresses, it has that, again, personally identifiable information, there is this statement that you have to put on your email. You have to encrypt it. You have to sign it. So there's all these buttons you hit on your email before you even hit the send button. And again, in the past, I've made a mistake and sent some information. Again, the network is secure enough. So even if you make a mistake, technically you might be okay. But again, systems can get hacked. As we can see, things can happen and systems can have breakdowns where somebody gets in and boom, the information's taken. So when you think about the rank structure, there is a level of, I would say punishment, but the expectation for someone that is in the officer realm and someone in the enlisted realm is different. There is a level of a responsibility that someone who is an E1 all the way up to an E9, it's different. And at each rank structure, you're told, and the expectations of you are so different. Because again, once you've learned this lesson, by the time you get to a certain rank, the expectation is different. You should know better. You should basically have this expectation that if you do certain things at a certain rank, you're more likely to be held responsible because, again, you should know better. So even when I'm thinking about this, when we're thinking about as business leaders, as business owners, there is a level of responsibility that you have when you're on different levels. So once you become a CEO of a company, because there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that are listening, once you decide to be a CEO of a company, realize the responsibility and the expectation for you is totally different than someone that works for you, different than someone who is your secondhand person, or it might be the same because, again, if they're like your right hand, literally, but it might be different from someone that is just the financial, they're the CFO, or someone that might be necessarily the executive or the people that are supporting your organization. There are different expectations. So when we go into business, we have to realize that the expectation for us is so much higher. And that's why we stress leadership development so much, is because a lot of times people go into these roles, or not even say leadership development. I've been talking about, I've been doing this thing where I've been talking about goal setting for 2021 to connect it to our launch, leverage, and lead goal setting that we're doing on December 27th. And the reason why is, and one of the things I talked about is for entry-level leaders, I talk about when you go into a new organization, you have to understand the roles and responsibilities and what the expectations are, because you want to know, okay, this is what's expected of me. Can I perform? Do I have the resources and the tools to do that? And even when thinking about this as a CEO of the company, again, the expectation is so much more. So you have to recognize that when you're managing people's stuff, when you are leading an organization, when you are making decisions, people are looking at you totally different. When you say, yes, this is what we're going to do, and you make a mistake or something bad happens and blows up, then if it's somebody that is a secretary or someone that is just solely in that support role, it's just the nature of the beast. So we have to recognize that when we're going into these spaces, we have to think about things big picture. That's a little nickname that they have at the organization for me, and the reason why is because I have been in a season where I know that I'm going into an E8 position, the second highest rank in the Air Force, I would say in the military period or in the enlisted side, but I'm going into it as an E8. The expectations of me is going to be different than right now as an E7. So I'm recognizing that, okay, what is the kind of thinking and what are the kind of things do I need to think about? One of the things that we do on the Active Lead Insights, we have attributes insights. And the reason why that one is so important, it gives you your order of thought. And allows you to think about, do you think about empathy? Do you consider the people first? Do you think about the process, or do you think that big picture? And for us, we have to recognize that we have to think about things at the CEO level, at certain levels, at such a big picture that we have to cover all the bases. How will it affect the people? How will it affect the places? How will it affect the things? Do I have the things in place to ensure that all these different things are taken care of? So, I know I've been like kind of rambling, but essentially the reason why those rank structures are created in any company, in any business is again, you have some people who fit under certain roles. You have these certain roles of responsibilities, but also realize that as you want more, they say much is given, much is required. That is a fact. The more you want, the more that you're trying to level up in your business, in your company, there's going to be more that you need. So even as you're leveling up in clientele, even as you're leveling up in teams, even as you're expanding, like Jeff Bezos has, and you have different locations, there's going to be more expected of you. So you have to start considering, how am I going to manage multiple teams? What do I need to do? What resources? What do I have to think about? What password protections do I have? I watched a video of him some years ago, and he was talking about his business planning. And he went to this one place that showed like the background systems of all the tools and these technical tools that they use to manage the internet traffic and to make sure that things don't shut down. I mean, there's so much that comes with building a business. So essentially, you have to realize as an entrepreneur, as a business, anytime you add more people, anytime you add more places, anytime you add more things, you have to consider the expectation is more. So you have to always consider what resources and what things do I need to do to make sure all these areas are managed. And also, what do these things also touch? So as we know, different places require more people, different things require more people. So if it affects people, it affects their information. What are you doing to make sure it's protected? What are you making sure that you are doing so you can have the right bodies in place so you can think about all these things so it doesn't happen to you?
And Corey, talk to us a little bit, and I'm gonna throw it over to you. I want two things from you, Corey, because the next thing for business owners, and you might be saying, "Well, I don't know anything about any of what you guys are talking about as far as business and or the systems or the tech side, or what am I responsible for?" But there are two things out there. One is called E&O insurance. That's error and omissions. So most professionals, like my wife, has it for a company doing translation. If she makes an error or omission, the insurance covers it because it's not something that was purposeful. There's also your business owner policies. And now those are your general liability and professional E&O wrapped into one. And what happens is when you get a policy like that, it will cover you for those errors and omissions, but it'll also cover you for general liability. And there are riders out there, such as cybersecurity related protections. Most people just fly right by that and they don't get it. I worked with a company before. It was a small, I want to say it was an insurance agency. They got hacked. They had to pay, I want to say $50,000 out of their pocket to because they got sued. They got hacked. I'm not sure if they actually lost or their client's information. I know it was compromised, but I don't know if the client actually got hit for anything. But they still sued them and they lost, and they had to pay 50 grand. I just outright. And so when you're creating your business, get business insurance. That's something else we got to talk about on our launch leverage and lead business cohort coming up in January. I don't think we have that on the pipeline, but that should be on there. Along with getting your EIN, your bank account, setting your business up right, the next step should be getting business insurance. Most people don't have it. But if you're operating a business and you're taking Cash App and Venmo and all of these other little payment platforms that aren't legitimate, well, they're legitimate, but they aren't staples like PayPal is. PayPal has all its protections that it tells you about. I'm gonna tell you something real quick before I shoot over the cord with Cash App. I was getting ready to pay a contractor in Cash App. I sent it. He gave me a name, but it wasn't like the name wasn't the right username. So even though it was a person's name, that wasn't their username. So the person I sent it to wasn't them. And it was like $1,500. It's gone. They can't get it back for you. The only way you can get it back is to request it back from the person. And so I requested it back. I ain't hear nothing. About 60 days went by. I requested one more time. I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it again and see. And they actually sent it back. 9 times out of 10, you ain't getting that money back because they don't have to send it back to you. So there are no protections for you there like there is with PayPal. You send some money out with PayPal, it go to the wrong person. Things will get right. They'll freeze it and they'll give it back to you. So, Corey, talk to me about creating trust on teams to ensure that some of that stuff, some of the things we're talking about is mitigated in-house. And then being from the insurance industry yourself, talk about having the right insurance policy, even just on your business, around your your vehicles. If you driving work vehicles for business, talk about having the right insurance policy in that perspective.
Yeah, and so let's start off with the teams, right? If you build the trust and you build the culture within your business and your team, a lot of this stuff can be mitigated. Listen to what Aisha just said, right? So she said in the Pentagon, they used to have to click these buttons before they send the email to encrypt it, to make sure that the email is safe and all that stuff to send it. If people aren't engaged, if people don't really care, they're not bought into the vision, they don't trust you, they don't rock with you like that. You really think she'd be pressing these buttons like that? She'd probably be like, email, 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 send it out. What you gonna do? Fire me? I'm trying to do my job right now, right? So, with that's you know what I mean. That's the thing. So you want when you can see your team take control of a lot of processes Because and in another view, you can think about supply chain as you have your own supply chain within your business, within your team. So, and it makes me think about what's the Gordon Ramsay show? It's the where they have all these messed up kitchens and all that other stuff. And so basically he goes in and it's always, the issue is always with the entire building, not just one particular piece. It goes from the owner all the way to the managers, all the way to the kitchen staff. That affects the food that's being served. Is rotten, is stale, is not seasoned, is not taken care of. So these things, you can tell that this company is not pouring into their team. A lot of these issues can be resolved without having to say, well, I got an insurance policy in place just in case it ever happens. You can resolve a lot of these things by making sure that your workforce, your team, your organization, your building culture is in place. So the biggest thing that people would talk about on that show, well, if the owner don't care, I don't care if I serve some food that might make somebody sick. They don't, none of the stoves in here work. So why would I care, what's coming out of this kitchen? Well, the refrigerator's leaking all day and I slip at least 10 times a day. So why do I care about what they want to do or whatnot? You have to take a level of care within your team. And then in turn, they will take a level of care within your business. And a lot of times we're talking about putting things in place, the insurance policies, the what if this happens, the encryptions, the what if you get hacked. A lot of y'all getting hacked from the inside already because you're not pouring into what really matters. And then you're self-sabotaging yourself by your employees. Now let's talk about the types of insurance. It is imperative that you have, whether it's on your car, whether it's on yourself, whatever it might be, you have that type of coverage. So here's what I want to say. And I have a background in insurance. So here's the thing. And I'm gonna just break it down in layman's terms for cars. But think about it for yourself. If you are trying to be protected when you have the minimum policy, the majority of the time, your company will say, you don't, in nicer words than this, you don't have enough coverage for me to try to defend you correctly. And so what they'll end up doing is exhaust whatever you pay for your limits. And then hopefully the person that's presenting the lawsuit, the person that's pursuing you for money says, sure, I'll take it. But if they don't take it, you sitting in court with X amount of dollars, your insurance carrier can actually pull out and say, I mean, that's all you were paying for. We couldn't get it settled. And now you're on the hook. I'll tell you, for example, let's say you pay for $30,000 of whatever insurance. You go to court, they slap you with $100,000. Your insurance carrier can say, well, we properly defended you. We attempted to do so. We offered the limits for it. You just don't carry enough. You on the hook now for $70,000. So make sure that you have the proper amount of coverage too. You wouldn't put $100,000, insurance on a $300,000 house because if something happens, you don't have enough money to cover that. So you make sure that you value your business correctly, and then you put the correct policy on that. You put the correct coverage on it, even for yourself. And I ain't even gonna get into the funeral. I was listening to that the other day, funeral expenses for people and all this other stuff. Folks don't have enough coverage for that. So y'all doing GoFundMe's. We ain't even gonna get into that conversation. Please put the correct policy on your business, right? What are some type of policies? You hear these companies on that are, man, you know what? If there's a big company here called Gallery Furniture, y'all. So they, every time the sports come up, the Astros were winning the World Series about 2 years ago or whatnot. And so they were like, well, if the Astros win the World Series, everybody who spent $5,000 in the last 3 months, all of your furniture is free. And so people are like, what? I can't believe that they would be willing to lose all this money. There's a policy to cover that. So there's a policy that says like, hey, if I hold this event and give these things away, I'll just get reimbursed by it if it actually does happen. Certain cars that you might buy, there's antique policies. There's policies on yourself most people don't even know what an umbrella policy is, y'all. Umbrella policy protects you and everything around you. And those go up in increments of $1 million. They're mighty cheap, by the way. So if y'all want to look into that, y'all probably should. But Yeah, you want to look into different types of policies depending on your business. Tyrus talked to you about the E&O policies, right? You want to talk to people about, and I want you to think about it as you are the castle, and then you have this moat around you, and that is your protection. What pieces do you need to put around you to make sure that you are fully protected? Because a lot of people are out here. I'm thinking about wedding planners, right? Might need that E&O policy.
Oh
These
yeah.
wedding planners might need this different liability insurances to say, hey, if something went wrong, and in the lingo is bad faith. People are very quick to say you did something in bad faith when it don't go their way. So do yourself a favor, look up the policies, get the correct amount on your policy, and make sure that somebody, if they ever do try to attack you or say, hey, you did this wrong, so you owe me some money. I think you did this in bad faith. You didn't do it in my best interest. You took these steps without my consent to be able to do so. You have something in place that says, hey, if we need to take it to court, that's fine. I got a policy that's going to cover it. Because court costs are quite high. So do yourself a favor, get yourself the right policy, protect yourself, right? So just think about it. Castle in the middle, you got the moat around you. That moat is your policies that's actually covering you.
That's good. And here's something that I want all business owners to think about. If you are in business and you're doing business and you're making some money, you will get sued eventually. It ain't a will it it's going to happen. I've been sued a few times.
It's when.
It is going to happen to you. If you don't have the right policy, if you don't have the right procedures, the right systems, the right contracts set up, and we're going to go through all of this in our launch, leverage, and lead cohort. If you don't have all of that set up, you are putting yourself at risk, huge risk. And it's not a small thing. People don't go to court and and come through and say, "Oh, I only want $2,000." I had a tenant sue me because there's a whole lot of stuff went wrong with that. But she sued me for, I want to say, $15,000. But it was not rent. She didn't pay any rent. She was living there for free, and we were trying to evict her. And so she countersued for $15,000. She was like, "Oh, I couldn't live here anyway. It was a abandoned building." And I'm like, "No, it was perfectly fine when you moved in. We got all the inspections. I had all the paperwork." So when my attorney showed up, and it was even it was even to the point to where she didn't know who to sue. So she actually put my virtual assistant's name on the paperwork because that's who she talked to. And so the judge said, "Well, who are you suing?" It's like, "Oh, I'm suing this person." And I'm like, and the judge was like, "Well, who is this?" I said, "Oh, that's my virtual assistant. They just send emails." And then the judge was like, "Well, who owns the property?" I was like, "I'm just a property manager. I don't own it. This is the owner." And the judge told the lady, first she told her, she said, "You know what? He has an attorney, you don't. You're at a start disadvantage. I'm not telling you what to do, but I know this is not the person that you should be trying to sue. And you probably won't win if you try to sue the right person that you think." Because she was saying this and saying that, but she had no paperwork, no evidence. I had all of that. And I had an attorney. I don't ever go to court without an attorney because the attorney knows court procedure and they know some things that I don't know. And even if I'd lost, I have insurance that would have covered it. A lot of landlords fall into that trap of not having home insurance, not having business insurance, and then when something happens to a tenant at their property, they get sued and they end up losing the house because they got to sell it to pay the bills off. And so, as you think about your business, again, if you collect payments from people, if people putting in their address, their credit card number, if you're doing coaching, if you're doing anything that involves collecting a social security number, you need insurance. You need a safe way to protect that data and information, and you need to have an awareness of it. I'm not telling you that you got to get technical, you got to go get a degree in IT and figure all this out, but at least be knowledgeable when you hire somebody and understand the supply chain. These major companies, these 499 out of the Fortune 500 that trusted SolarWinds, somebody paying something. Somebody paying. Now I don't know who's paying. I don't know if SolarWinds has the cap to pay. I think their revenue last year was $1 billion, so maybe they can handle it. Maybe their insurance probably will. But now trust is lost between, if I use Microsoft, I'm a consumer of Microsoft, and my information got stolen. Well, Microsoft saying, "Well, it's not my fault. SolarWinds got hacked, and they got me hacked." It kind of is your fault because you weren't monitoring your supply chain. And when we think about this, when you look at it, this was, I think, 9 months ago that this happened. They just found out because another security company that got hacked found out that, hey, we got hacked. Where did it come from? Oh, it came from a product that we installed from a trusted supply chain vendor. And then they released that information and blew it up. And now everybody knows. Think about this. You can be hacked and your information can be stolen and you not know it. It's not all the time that somebody's going to take the money out your bank account. Selling data is worth much more than selling the little $3,000 you got in your bank account or stealing that. So think about that. I want you to really take that and let it marinate. Get the proper insurance, understand your supply chain. And to wrap this up, I'm gonna throw it back over to Aisha. I looked at SolarWinds Glassdoor reviews. They have some good reviews, but they also have a lot of bad reviews on working us to death, sweatshop type environment, always busy. Tech companies are often concerned with staying up with constantly evolving technology because if you don't, you get left behind. Could that contribute to the lack or to a lack of employee concern? And can that, and back to what Corey was talking about, Aisha, if you're not feeding into your people and they feel overworked and underpaid and stressed out, could that cause people not to put their best foot forward and check these things like the software embed, not to do the extra checks? Most of the time when people get hacked, especially large corporations, they get hacked because a patch wasn't done that was available. There's all kind of reasons why people don't do patches. They get busy, something else is a priority, they forget. But let's talk about people who just not feeling good at work. You overworking me, underpaying me. Why should I take the extra step to make sure things are going well?
Yeah, and I think that's great because and 100%, just like Corey hit on, if you aren't taking care of your team members and it's becoming more of a, okay, these are the goals, we have to reach them. We're not worried about work-life balance. We're not worried about your employee development. We're not worried about communicating and connecting and engaging with you effectively. It can 100% affect these system issues. So for instance, we were talking about, me and Corey had, I mean, it was when Amazon first, I mean, it might have been like I feel like it was a year ago when we had that conversation, but we were highlighting Amazon and why they were boycotting Amazon, a lot of the people that worked at the warehouses. And it was because of course there were a lot of breakdowns within the system, but also it had recognized that in the process when we were talking about it, we have recognized that they were looking for additional support in the processes because they were recognizing, because they had goals of how many boxes and how many orders they needed to fill. And this was during the peak of COVID. So it was this year. It was a peak of COVID, and they were like, listen, we want to make sure that we have enough time off. If we get, unfortunately, if there's a situation where we have to, step away and quarantine, we need to make sure we have, our finances are going to be taken care of. But one of the things that was a cause of concern is because they had these goals that you needed to hit in the warehouse, that it was making, or people were feeling like, listen, I have to hit this goal. So these breaks they were supposed to take so they can ensure that they were sanitizing their hands, making sure that they were taking all the precautions, the safety precautions, they started to become lax at it because they had to hit this goal. So what does that mean? If you're not taking the proper precautions, if you're not going and sanitizing, washing your hands, taking breaks like you should, and so on, that now results to, hey, somebody might be coming in with COVID. That might result to, okay, well, I know that they're not necessarily going to pay me or give me the leave that I need if I do potentially have to quarantine because someone else had it. So I'm going to go to work anyway, even if I do have sniffles and a cough. I'm just going to go to work either way. So literally, if you aren't necessarily identifying the team needs, the needs of your team members, the needs of those employees that are supporting you, that can cause breakdowns elsewhere. And now it's affecting their health. Now it's affecting safety. Now it's affecting processes. Because if I'm solely supposed to get out a certain amount of emails or process a certain amount of transactions on a daily basis, I'm moving so fast, and now I'm not recognizing that I'm forgetting to dot the I's and cross the T's. And as we know with the Act and Lead Insights, we also talk about the people with different behavior styles. And the reason why we talk about that is because there are certain behavior styles that are a little bit more unorganized. So they're more likely to make more mistakes and errors and not dot the I's and cross the T's, versus those that are precision, they're quality oriented. Like myself, I'm big on like dotting all the I's, crossing the T's, but even I make mistakes. They know because I've sent messages and I'm like, hey, Corey, I don't see that file. What, I don't see nothing. He's like, it's in there. And I'm like, oh man, I sent out an email. I had the wrong link. And Tyrus is like, Aisha, that's the old link. And I'm like, oh, so even we have to realize that there's human error, but now you've added time, pressure, stress to it. So now I'm rushing and I'm not dotting the I's and crossing, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And that's what happens. Now that that's not happening, now again, safety, security is being tampered with. And now I'm going out, knocking out these emails, and I'm sending out 10, 20 emails, and I didn't put that PII statement. I didn't encrypt it. I didn't sign it. So we do have to recognize that work-life balance, understanding your team needs, ensuring that they have all the resources that they need, also plays into this type of security and these areas that we're fearful of. They might be more likely to, unfortunately, and again, that's more of an integrity thing too, but somebody that might get tempted and somebody comes in and says, hey, listen, I'll give you $1,000 if you give us and sell us some information from your company, they might be more likely to do that. And again, that's more of a integrity and values thing, but we have to always assess the system of our people as well, and making sure that we are catering, or not even catering, but we are doing the work necessary to identify if they have the right resources, the tools, if the timelines that you've given them make sense. Find out what their experience is like with the customer, because what they might unpack for you is another area that you might need to remedy that might allow their work-life situation to be better, might allow them to be able to effectively work effectively within that organization or within that role that they play. So it's so important that we're checking that, because if you don't do that, you're going to see more breakdowns. And who knows, potentially it could have been just that, because they didn't do their part to ensure that team needs were taken care of. This might be a reason why there were more holes and gaps that were happening, because instead of you having a team that should be focused on, hey, you know what, let's assess to see if there are some security issues, they're busy working and grinding and trying to meet your goals. And this is something that's not even their thought. They just know, I'm gonna go in and I know the expectation of me is to do 100 tasks, and I can't think of anything else, because there's time, pressure, and stress connected to it. So that thinking and that innovation you want people to have, how can they have it when you are solely functioning from a space where get the job done? So 100% you need to make sure that you're considering that. 100% you need to assess that on a regular basis. And the more you do that, the more you'll see less of this happening.
Yeah, and so one of the things I want people to take away from this talk is, and it's going back to something that Tyra said, like having the right protection, and really we all talked about it. You move differently when you have the right counsel, I guess you could say, and whether that's a business coach, whether that's a lawyer, whether that's a some type of entity to be able to back you up in this. Tyrus, I bet you walk in that courtroom a little bit differently when your attorney's like, you know what, they filed that for the wrong person. I'm about to file a motion to dismiss.
Like Superman.
Right. And so you sitting here and they're like, man, I'm going, like, the other person, man, I'm going to get my money today. And you like, it's about to get dismissed, because you have the right backing to it. Or maybe they filed something incorrectly, and you know what, at least in Texas, I can say, I'm about to file a motion to quash. And for those of you who don't know what that is, a motion to quash is a motion to try to push something out, or, maybe it was incorrectly done. Or, you may walk into there and say, you know what, based on what my business coach said, I don't have to worry about this because I didn't do anything wrong. Right. And so you walk into that situation with a different level of confidence because your circle protected you. And so as we bring it back to talking about teams for myself, internally, when you build that culture around yourself, when you build your own team, you walk a little bit different. So that's what I want people to really take away from this. We talked about protection, and yes, you have the policies and all that other stuff, but it's not just about the policy and the number behind it. It's the peace of mind. It's the confidence you can walk through in your business and in your life, knowing that you have somebody to lean on.
Yep. That's good. That's good. So as we wrap this up, the recap and really the takeaway. I know it's a tech, and when we talk about tech stuff, people get bored. People don't like to hear it, but there are lessons in every business, no matter what that business is. The lessons or the takeaways in this were: one, understand your supply chain. Who are you relying on, and who is relying on you? And you may not be able to guarantee everything. You can at least ask the question: what are you doing to protect this? What are you doing to mitigate risk? What happens if something happens? Whose responsibility? And oftentimes, Corey, that information is in those paperwork that we just sign away, the terms and the conditions, and we just sign because we don't want to read it. A lot of time that information is in there. Number two, as a business owner, you need proper business insurance. Get with an insurance agent, call somebody, figure out what you need for your business based on what you do. Like Corey said, there's tons of different policies for different things, different protections, different layers. Think about the riders that you might need. Sometimes you'll run into an insurance company that just want to sell you some insurance. Ask questions, get some clarification, ask the what ifs. And last, just take serious being in business overall. Take it serious. Make sure that you're operating as a business owner, not a hustler. I'm gonna make a couple of announcements, but we're gonna let y'all get out of here. Again, remember, rise or fall. It's gonna kind of go away a little bit. It's gonna be just rise or fall is gonna be encompassed a lot with a lot of other things. So we're gonna bring you more value, more information. We have our business cohort coming up in January 18th. We are calling it your Launch, Leverage, and Lead series. If you're a new emerging entrepreneur, we're going to help you launch your business by providing you all the information you need: branding, marketing, leadership development, proper business structure, everything, ad, whatever you could think about. And most people say, well, I want to start a business and I don't know how, or don't know where, or don't know what to do. We're going to give you all of that information. So January 18th, you can go to our website, www.actleadconsulting.com. You will be able to see that information there. Or you can contact us via email, info@leadconsulting.com. But go to the website. It's spelled out there. Once you get there, you can sign up right online. So go to the website. If you need to talk to us about, or you want more information, we have that available where you can schedule an appointment with us on the website. So go there. We want you to join us on December 27th, this coming Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern, for part two of our live strategic planning session. It's the kickoff to the series, to the business cohort. So this will give you a sample. You say, you know what? I don't know y'all. Y'all new to me. How do I know you know what you're talking about? Come to this free webinar. How long were we on last time, Corey? 2 hours?
Yeah, about 2 hours, just giving it away.
So we were on for 2 hours, giving away everything about goal planning. We're going to do the same thing on this December 27th. So that's your precursor to the Launch, Leverage, and Lead series. If you say, I just need to see what you guys are about, come join us. Register. You can check. It's also on our Facebook page. We've been putting out links there. So if you need it, I'm going to drop it all in the comments. And lastly, Corey and I are going to hit me over the head. Lastly, what I want to do is if you text Act and Lead to 443-230-5587 by January the 18th. I'm going to give you a holiday. If you text that to us, I'm going to give y'all a free Act and Lead Insights assessment.
What?
What? We raising IQs and EQs. We raising EQs. Okay.
Normally
I'm mad at that.
we only give away the disc, which is one part I'm giving away the whole thing with a consultation. So I'm gonna do your
Okay, you ain't say all that. You can say all that.
$47 value. I'm giving away for free. But I want you to text. You have to text ACT and lead to 443-230-5587.
Hey,
And
Tyrus, I'm gonna throw something in there too. I know a Clubhouse is the big thing. Listen, if you want to also be in the running to get an invite to Clubhouse, you trying to get in, you've been hearing everybody talk about it, and you have an iPhone, I will also give away a couple of those invites. I'm just saying. I mean, it's a big thing. You can get a Clubhouse invite. Yeah, people are really raffling these off, y'all. So it's a big deal.
there you go. And when you text that ACT and lead, go ahead and text us so we know that you heard. Text rise or fall with it. Just rise or fall. And that way we'll know where you came from, where you're going. And like January, give you to the what I said, the 11th or 18th.
It's the 18th.
Okay, I'm gonna give
Give him some time.
you the January the 18th. After that, don't show up now on March 22nd. Talk about I want the ACT and lead insights. Don't show up. I'm giving you a lot of time. I'm giving you a couple weeks. We will do this again, just in case you say, hey, I didn't hear the podcast. I didn't catch you guys that time. I'm just finding out who you are. We're going to do giveaways again. We like to have holiday seasons, and it's not just during your normal holiday periods. We do giveaways throughout the year because we want to add value, and we want you to see what we're about and be able to sample. You know, when you go to the mall, they give you that sample, and that sample makes you go and want to spend at that restaurant. So we take the same approach here. And as we get ready to close out, rise or fall for SolarWinds, I'm gonna go first. They're gonna rise. What happens in companies like that is they make the adjustment. They release the patch, they notify their clients, their customers, they fix it, and then they move forward. Now, what happens on the back end is the client, their customer says, okay, you got hacked. I'm gonna put an additional measure. I might not trust you as much. I'm gonna still use your product. I'm gonna use your service because it does. When you're a market leader, you don't lose it. I'm gonna still use your service because it's good, but now I'm gonna have to put this additional check and just not trust you right off the bat. And everybody gonna say, "Cool, cool. We we still gonna make money together." So still rise on me for SolarWinds.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do. I'm gonna say this. They're gonna rise because, like you said, when you are the industry leader, it's hard to knock you off that pedestal. However, if they don't address some things internally, I think they will fall. And the reason I say that is based on the surveys, based on the reviews on a couple different websites. The lowest three ranking things for SolarWinds is work-life balance, management, and culture.
Good.
Yeah, and again, I think too that they will possibly rise as well. Again, anything can be remedied, right? Because there's lessons that you're going to learn as a business leader. There's lessons you're going to learn as a business owner. And then once you learn those lessons, it's applying the changes so it doesn't happen again. So anybody has the potential to rise. I don't know how high they're going to rise because, again, they were an industry leader until some changes happen. So I think they will rise again.
Cool. So that's it for us. We hope that you have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate, but just take this time to enjoy it with family. We will see you all in the new year. It's going to look a little different. Same, well, not same value, added value to you. So remember that. Join us. You'll see posts from us coming out for all the things that we have upcoming. Remember, visit the website at leadconsulting.com. You'll be able to sign up for all of our goodies that we have, all of our programs, our courses, and just learn a little bit more about us. And so that's it. We're going to let you guys get out of here. And the great words of our mentor, Master P, who I heard was killing it, to Aisha's point, on Clubhouse yesterday. I actually went on Instagram and I saw other people talking about it. They were like, Master P was dropping gems in Clubhouse yesterday. So if you got an iPhone, they hating on Android users right now. I emailed them. They said give them a little bit of time. They're gonna roll it out for Android too. But get that invite to Clubhouse so you can go and get that information that Aisha's dropping on there on behalf of our team. So, in the great words of our leader, Master P, we mix action and leadership, and you got to be body.
Body.
Mm.